Hello again. Welcome back to Two Nerds Podcast. This is Chris. I'm the host, obviously. You get to hear my nasally northern voice again. Feeling a lot better. Had a weekend where I didn't really have to do anything, so that was cool. I've been 2 days symptom-free, 2 days lifting. I have my own gym. I'm not going to the gym. 2 days lifting and 2 days jogging again. So that's been good. That's been real good. Before I get into that, though, I just want to say, hey, if you like the podcast so far, I'm available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Breaker, Radio Republic, and Pocket Casts. So if you like it, go ahead and subscribe. And just listening makes me happy. Like, I'm happy that I'm getting people to hear me. Like, it means a lot. So, that being said, we're going to jump right back in. I was going to talk about Corona later and fitness, but I'll just rearrange some things right now. And that's going to be bumped to the front since I already mentioned it. I actually have notes. I'm not just making all this up most of the time. So Corona and fitness, the CDC and a couple other places, probably the WHO, have all come out and said if you exercise and are generally healthy, you're going to be more likely to be resistant to the coronavirus, which I'm not a doctor. I was a personal trainer for 5 years, and that does not make me a doctor. Don't misunderstand. Most of my education is self-education, which is not the same as going and getting a doctorate. But everything that I've ever read has definitely insinuated that eating right and exercising boosts your immune system, so that makes sense. You know, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm going to touch on a sensitive topic here. We nerds, we kind of have a reputation and have had it for a long time, and that's that we're a bunch of disheveled, slovenly land beasts who just are filthy, disgusting people. I mean, that's the nature of it. I think that is starting to kind of shed away now that a lot of nerd culture is breaking into mainstream and has been for the past few years, but it's still a stereotype that exists, and the only reason I know it exists is because, like I said, I do run a gaming store, and we deal in a lot of nerd culture. I'm probably the only person in that store that doesn't like Star Wars, and you know, I'm the oddity there, but like all the things that were considered nerdy when I was a kid are getting popular now. It's kind of an interesting thing to see, actually. But anyway, so that's really important that you guys take care of yourselves. I mean, I'm getting close to 40, and don't get me wrong, I've got the getting close to 40 belly because I like to eat pizza and I like to drink beer, but I do exercise and I do try to take care of myself a little bit. And, you know, I do think that's a big part of how and why I was able to kind of have such a mild case and how I was able to get through it so quickly. My second test is scheduled for Tuesday, so hopefully it comes up negative. If not, I just finish out my 2 weeks of quarantine, and that's the way it is. So, cool. So, today we're going to talk about Necromunda new releases, Blood Bowl new releases, one of the rule changes to Blood Bowl. We're actually going to touch on the Bears today. I'm a casual football fan. I'm not an avid fan. I can't tell you everybody's statistical details or anything like that, but I do enjoy watching football, and I do know enough to understand a little bit about the game. So, we're going to talk about Plasma DACA and how it makes me harder than Mega Armor, and we're actually going to look at Mantic Games and the Kings of War rules, and we're going to take a look at maybe some other games from them. We might not touch on them yet. We're going to see. We'll kind of see where we're at with time. So, cool. First up, we're going to talk about Necromunda releases. For those of you that don't know, Necromunda is a Warhammer 40,000 game based in the Hive world of Necromunda. It's basically a squad level 40k, but not like Kill Team, because Kill Team kind of sucks. It uses Old Hammer rules, so you still have blast templates and flame templates and stuff like that. And I'll tell you, that older rule system really works well for games like Necromunda because your activations alternate. And because they alternate, you don't have to worry about somebody just moving their whole team and then shooting you off the board. It's not done in phases. It's done by actions. So everybody that... So if you are going to activate, you activate one of your gangers, and that fighter will get to perform 2 actions. He can move, or she can move, shoot, fight. There's a whole list of actions that you can perform. Basically, think of it as you get 2 action points, and some actions take 1 action point, some actions take 2 action points, and some actions that take 1 action point you can't repeat. So like shooting a gun, you can't shoot a gun twice in one activation because it's a 1 action point action, but you don't get to do it twice. You could move and shoot, or shoot and move, but not shoot and shoot. But anyway, sorry about that. A little bit of a tangent. I'm sure you guys have figured that out by now. I kind of get derailed. New Van Sar. And I'll tell you, the new expansions have been really cool. I've got the Goliath expansion personally. I didn't even have the Goliath gang, and then one of my buddies was just like, I'm not feeling this gang. So I picked it up from him. I love them. I fail cool checks all the damn time. I can have a cool of 7, the most commonly rolled number on 2d6, and I will fail it. So the fact that Goliaths are cool 5 has helped me out tremendously because I don't worry about failing them anymore. You know, I get those 5s and those 6s, and I'm just like, cool, I'm good. All right. And this isn't an exaggeration. There are players out there who can attest to it. They've watched me fail cool tests of 7 many, many times. So, you know, the expansions are real cool. I'm going to get the House of Iron. That one is Orlok. That's been one of my favorite gangs, too. I think being able to just take heavy, or not heavy, but regular bolters, just doing bolter spam is disgusting. I started our first campaign running bolter auto pistol chainsword on every single one of my gangers with the exception of my 2 heavy weapons dudes. One of them had a heavy stubber and the other one had a grenade launcher and a power fist, or a servo arm. Silly. Just silly. Outshot the shooty gangs and outfought the fighty gangs by taking a generalist approach and then getting my level ups and hoping for the best for those. But yeah, it was not fun. Second campaign did, oh gosh, Cawdor? No, Chaos Cultists. Won some, lost some. It was an interesting campaign. We didn't get to finish it. It kind of died out because of 9th edition getting announced and launched. 9th edition 40K. We're gonna start a new one. Goodness. Starting a new one. Was going to do it in January. Might still do it in January. I don't know if this quarantine is going to push that back or not. And I think for that one, I'm going to run Goliaths. We'll see how that goes. One of the other guys is running Escher. And I think we got one guy running Chaos Cultists. So it's going to be an interesting and fun campaign. I think we're going to have like 5 or 6 people in it. And we still have a Blood Bowl League that we got to get finished. That got put on hold because of me getting sick and my brother getting sick, because he was also in the league. But anyway, House of Artifice, back to Van Sar's. It's gonna, the book is gonna have expanded rules. You're gonna have Van Sar specific level ups and skills probably. The other books have had that type of stuff. They have their own special juves now, which is really cool. But the other thing is the Green Goblin-esque grav cutters, I believe they're called. Yep, grav cutters. I mean, those are really cool looking models. I like them. I don't necessarily like the shield pistol combo on them, but generally speaking, I like the grav cutters themselves. Would definitely make me consider running Van Sars, just because I want the grav cutters. Like I may just get a box of those just so I have the models, because they're really cool. The dice are super sweet. they're clear with blue. Really, really digging those. I will get myself a set of those dice just because, again, I like them. I'm a dice whore. I've been playing tabletop games for a long time, so I have probably given away more dice than most people have owned. But no, a lot of the new Necromunda stuff, really, really good. Sorry, I was taking a sip of my coffee. I do that a lot. So, really, really good. Been some interesting changes to the game. Juves count as your base gangers now, your base fighters. So they don't count against your fighter, non-fighter balance that you have to maintain throughout the game. Because that really, before these books started coming out, that really made it difficult. Because the game talked about how Juves were supposed to be the focal point of your gang. Because they were the ones that like got the cool experience level ups and had all these special rules. But when you get them, they suck, which is fine. It's okay that they suck. It's just you can only have so many, and you still have to have the fighters, and then you still have to have the champions, and then you still have to have the leader. So it was like having one or two Jews in your gang really threw everything off because you'd have to add one or two more gangers or fighters to your gang. And it made balancing and like maintaining your gang a pain in the butt. You'd have to have like 14 guys if you wanted to get some Jews. Like, it was just silly. So I think that's a very welcome change. I think counting the Juves and the, what is it, the newcomers, gosh, I'm trying to remember the actual up-and-comers maybe. Adding those to the list of like base fighters is phenomenal. So yeah, really looking forward to that. Really pumped. I'm hoping somebody runs Vansars in our next campaign so I can see how they run. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to get them and run them. And, I mean, honestly, I'll probably end up with one member of every, or one gang. Yeah. One complete gang for every house in the game. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. I'm on my 4th cup of coffee already, so I'm a little wired today. Woke up at like 4:30 because I fell asleep early and decided to wake up and play Cyberpunk, which, hey, while we're on it, let's talk about that. Bought Cyberpunk 2077 a couple days ago, got it downloaded, started playing yesterday. I've probably dumped 8 hours into it over the last 24. It's the most I've played a game since Fallout 4 was launched, probably. Maybe Rage 2, but that's been few and far between. Like, I've put a lot of time into the game, but it's been really spread out, whereas this, just like Fallout, was very condensed. It's an enjoyable game. I grew up on the tabletop, that and Shadowrun, and a lot of the old Cyberpunk movies like the Johnny Mnemonic and the Strange Days with Ralph Fiennes. So a lot of the concepts and things going on in the game are very familiar to me because while I'm sure they weren't intentionally lifted directly from these different sources, they're definitely inspired by. The brain dance sequence in Cyberpunk is very reminiscent of the movie Strange Days, where they're doing, gosh, I can't remember what they're called in the movie, but it's the same concept. They just jack into, or they put a chip into their cyber deck, or whatever you want to call it, comlink. They put it in, and then it, like, you feel and smell, like it enhances, or not enhances, it triggers your senses. There we go. Like, it manipulates your senses, so it's like hyper-realistic VR where you actually feel like you are experiencing what it is you're experiencing. Shadowrun had that into its core mechanics too, in a thing called Beetles or BTLs, Better Than Life chips, so that you could basically buy a virtual experience, but it would be just like experiencing the real thing without the drawbacks. So that part of it is very reminiscent. The way the Matrix works, or decking or hacking or whatever you want to call it, is very similar to the AR detailed in Shadowrun, which is the augmented reality. And you know, your VR sequences are very similar to like Shadowrun, Johnny Mnemonic. So if you have any experience with any kind of cyberpunk stuff, like you're gonna feel pretty well at home. It's the dystopian corporate world that cyberpunk usually, and I don't just mean cyberpunk as a book, but I mean as a genre as a whole, usually has. It's that kind of dreary city with the flashy neon lights. Blade Runner's another good example. It's a little bit less, but it definitely had an impact on a lot of the cyberpunk literature and games that followed. Definitely been enjoyable. I have a few complaints about the game, but they're not big complaints. I mean, it's immersive. I don't usually get pulled into a video game. I'm not a big video game guy. I play them here and there, play Halo casually with the kids, some Minecraft, you know, so I'm not like an avid gamer. But it did pull me in. I've had a lot of fun with it. Jesus, though, there are some times where it's like the longest cutscene ever. I mean, yeah, they're interactive cutscenes, but like the whole sequence with Johnny Silverhand, when you do the interlude between Act 1 and Act 2, like that is effectively just like an hour-long cutscene, and you guys can eat a dick for doing that. Like that could have been condensed. I mean, I get it. It's part of your immersive experience. But man, I want to play the game. I don't want to watch a movie. You know, and I'm probably in the minority there because there's a lot of people out there who just want the story, man. They're all about the experience in the story. Man, I just want to play the fucking game. Like, just let me play the game. But outside of that, I mean, it's a little glitchy. I haven't had too many issues. I know people were saying it runs like shit on Xbox and PlayStation. I've only had it get a little laggy or drop frame rate a couple times, and I'm not monitoring frame rate. Again, I'm not like a big computer guy or anything like that, but I'm smart enough to know what's going on when it's happening. And I only had it crash once, so I really have no complaints there. Could they have released a more stable product? Absolutely, they could have. Should they have? Absolutely, they should have. But the reality is that's the way software is released now, is they rush to get it out and then they fix it later. And the assholes that are paying $60, $70, $80 to pre-order the games are why companies can continue to do that, because they will buy faulty products knowing that these software companies will patch it and fix it later. So it's not the company's fault. It's really ours as the consumer. You know, if we want that to change, we need to just stop buying games from companies that are well known for doing that. Kudos to Microsoft for buying out Bethesda, because hopefully that means their games won't be a piece of shit at launch and we don't have to wait for patches to fix them. Fallout 76 is a great example of a game that sucked at launch. Hopefully it's better. I just downloaded that one too. I'm going to jump back into it. I have some issues there too, though. Like, if you want to do your own private server, it's going to cost you $15 a month. You guys can go to hell. Like, I'm going to try it for a month, but that's it, just to see, really just so I can play the game without having to worry about getting griefed. You know, but you guys can go to hell. Like, I spent $60 on this game. It was a piece of shit, and you're going to charge me $15 a month if I want to play it not with a bunch of assholes? Cool. Thanks. You know, plus all the microtransactions. Get out of here. Hopefully Microsoft cleans that shit up too, but I doubt that. Speaking of video games, a new Blood Bowl should be coming out within the next year. Blood Bowl is a great game if you like sports. Boy, is it a... Old TK says Blood Bowl is a great game. You know, it's a wonderful game if you like football. Very strategic, actually really well balanced, believe it or not. One of the few GW games that is actually really well balanced. A lot of fun, a lot of chaos, a lot of die rolling. The PC version and the Xbox version are exactly the tabletop version, just on an Xbox. So like when you buy Monopoly, the board game, on an Xbox, and it's Monopoly, the board game, it's the same concept. The only issue I have is the PC doesn't really explain the rules because it doesn't have to, and that's fine, because when you're playing it, it automates all the die rolling and stuff, so it takes a lot of that out of it. The downside to that is I've played in a lot of online leagues, And you can tell who's played on the tabletop, and you can tell who hasn't, especially when you're playing in online leagues. Because, like, you will, if you've got tabletop experience, you will shit all over anybody who doesn't. I don't care. I don't care how good you think you are. You'll get shit on. It's the way it is. Because your experience is a lot more limited. Even though you're playing a wider variety of opponents, you are playing a lot of opponents who have also only played on the Xbox or the PC. So it's one of those where it's real interesting. Real interesting because I know when I was playing in leagues, I would usually be shit-stomping people bad enough by the end of the first half that they would rage quit, which is another reason why I stopped playing. I got tired of people rage quitting. Like, get out of here. I wanted to play a game. I didn't want to play half of a game just to watch you throw a temper tantrum. But another reason why I don't play online games is because a lot of their communities are toxic. Like, stupid toxic. You know, my brother and I started playing Rocket League not that long ago. And, I mean, we've been playing for, like, literally a week. Have not played, like, I played the game once or twice before, 4 years ago when it first came out. One of my buddies had it. And maybe even more years ago. I don't know. I'm just guessing. And he and I just played together once or twice when we worked together. And that's it. So, basically, have played the game maybe 10 times. Well, we're doing pretty well together, so we decided to jump into ranked play just to see how it is. And to start with, we're winning like 50% of our games. Well, then we get into a game where we're just getting our asses handed to us. And the dude we're playing with is just like, dude, you're a piece of shit. You should just kill yourself. Like, why do you even fucking play this game? And I was like, cool, bro. Like, we literally just started playing the game. Why don't you shut your mouth? You know, and he was just like, oh, yeah. And I was like, hey, it's cool, man. We can't all be fat slobs who have nothing better to do than sit behind a computer all day. And he's like, yeah, you're a fat slob. That's why you're losing. And then, you know, like, okay, cool. Like, that just kind of proved my point. You know, I'm losing because I'm a fat slob and I have nothing better to do than sit here and play this game all day. I don't think so. You know, I don't have aspirations of being a pro gamer. I just wanted to test the waters out. And was quickly reminded that people are generally just pieces of shit. You know, but whatever. I'll keep playing, and who knows, maybe I'll come up to him again and beat his ass, you know. It's one of those where I'm a casual player. I just wanted to see what it was like. And there's no reason to be a shitty human being for the sake of being a shitty human being, you know. Be shitty if somebody's shitty to you, but if nobody's being shitty to you, just keep your damn mouth shut. Like, how hard is that? You know, I bet if that dude was sitting right in front of me, he wouldn't be saying that shit, but oh well. He'd have to peel his ass off the couch first. Yeah, we're going to take a quick break. I've been talking a lot longer than I thought I had been, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to jump right back into it. Holy cow, what a huge tangent that was. Shit, so back to Blood Bowl. First thing I want to talk about are the new dice. New dice coming out, super sweet, Dwarf and Skaven. Really dope. Check them out. They're on the community website for Games Workshop. What are they? The Dwarf ones are kind of granity looking with some blue. And then these Skaven ones are just like this weird putridy lime green and a translucent brown gold color. Definitely like the Dwarf one's better. I'm a big Skaven fan. They're one of my favorite teams. I know in the last edition they were generally considered a not top tier team, but that's okay. Like I said, the game's fairly well balanced, and Skaven in the hands of a good coach are pretty gross. So let's see. New pitches are really cool. One side's Skaven, one side's Dwarves. Dwarf side obviously looks like granite or marble, and then the Skaven side kind of has that warp stone effect going on, big cracks. Really like the Skaven side. I'll probably pick one of those up. I have like 4 different pitches right now because I'm a freaking Blood Bowl nerd. It's the good stuff, you know. But you know, the new rules are pretty neat. I've read through them, and there's some cool stuff going on there. A lot of improvements. I've already touched on it a little bit, but the one thing I want to talk about right now is the new reroll change. And I know some people are on the fence about whether or not it was intentional, or whether, you know, like, whatever. And it's basically, there's no hard cap in how many rerolls you can use in a turn. Now, you still can't reroll a reroll to die, so if you fail a dodge and you use a reroll, you can't reroll the reroll, no matter how many rerolls you've got. No rerolling the reroll for a rerolled reroll, you dig? But, you know, so it's limiting you to one reroll per action, effectively, whether it's a skill reroll or a team reroll. Doesn't matter. But the cool, like, I'm mixed on this. I'm gonna have to play some games. I've only gotten one game in before I got sick, so I'm gonna have to play some games, see how I feel about it. I'm mixed on it. I can see it being useful, and I can see it being shitty. Like, I feel like it could potentially put too much emphasis on having rerolls, which to me would detract from the game. Like, it's kind of dumb. Like, if I've got to sit here and watch you reroll 10 dice in a turn just to get a touchdown, this is dumb. I'm not a fan of that. But, and I have to verify it, I can't remember, and I have to double check, but it used to be your rerolls got more expensive once League started. And if that's still the case, then I'm okay with the change, because then even if it does put more emphasis on rerolls, they're still just as hard to get as they used to be. You know, you're not going to have too many teams that are just going to have 8 rerolls so that they can have 4 of them in one turn. You know, I'm sorry, but the dice are the dice. You guys need to learn how to deal with that. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. But that's one of the issues that happens when people start tinkering with games that are as old as Blood Bowl. You've got a rule set that has barely changed over the last 20, 25 years. And then this new edition kind of just revamped it. And most of the changes have been good. I don't think I've come across one where I've been like, this is bad. There's some where I've been like, meh. Like the passing skill, I'm like, meh. Like the passing skill being a thing is okay. I am not a fan of the fact that there are some people who just don't have it. Like, oh, you just can't pass the ball. That's kind of fucking dumb. Anybody can throw a ball. Like, just make it a 6. Like, everybody's worst pass stat is a 6. Like, that makes more sense than no. You're too much of a slobbering mongoloid to be able to throw a ball. Like, get out of here. Like, that one didn't make sense. I wasn't a fan of that specific part of the pass skill. The rest of the pass skill, I was like, I don't care. Like, it is what it is. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just different. But like I said, the new reroll has the potential to have a significant impact on the game, and I just need to get more games in to be able to decide it, how I feel about it. You know, rules as written, it looks like it could go either way. But once the game's in progress, like, we'll see. Because it's one of those where, you know, I was talking to one of my buddies who is also a big Blood Bowl fan. And he was like, yeah, but, like, you could burn through 4 rerolls in one turn. So it's going to make you have to budget them more. And, yeah, he's right. I get that. But it's one of those where it's like, if I'm on the receiving end of losing a game because you have 3 rerolls and you can use them all in one turn, like, no. Like, that's shitty. And, again, that's putting too much emphasis on re-rolling dice. And I have been the victim, and victim's not the right word. I have gotten the privilege of experiencing many, many times somebody needing to get a 6, rolling a 1, using a re-roll, and rolling it into a 6. And the one person in particular has managed to do it multiple times in one game. And it's like, dude, if I had to endure that multiple times in one turn, I'd probably hang myself from the ceiling fan for my underwear. You know, like, God, it's terrible. You know, hey, while we're talking about football, God, I mentioned this already. Bears did get a win. Pretty excited. I know it was against a not great team, although Houston has historically been a good team. This year is not their best year for sure. There's been a lot of turmoil, a lot of coaching issues and stuff like that, some weird trades that happened in the offseason and stuff. But the offense actually looked good for 2 straight games. Not great, but good. Trubisky is looking okay. He's not amazing, but he is not turning the ball over like he was. His body language seems a little bit different. Maybe he needed some time off. Maybe they just like gave him some private work that, I don't know, maybe something's going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. I'm sure there is. But he looked good. Nagy gave up offensive play calling, 2 weeks ago, I think. And it has generally just gotten progressively better each week as it's been out of his hands. So it's maybe the quarterbacks weren't the issue. I mean, again, I'm not an expert. I'm just speculating as a casual fan. But maybe, just maybe, Trubisky or Foles weren't the issue. I'm sorry, but you will never convince me that a guy who has the nickname Big Dick Nick is going to be your problem on offense. He can't be. But no, it was really exciting to see. It'd be really cool if they managed to win out the rest of the season and maybe sneak into the playoffs in a wild card spot. See what kind of damage they can do. Be even better if they were reminiscent of those Giants teams that managed to do it. Sneak in a wild card spot and just take it all the way. I'm not holding my breath. Chicago finds a way to lose. They never disappoint. But had to get my little piece in about football. We're going to shift back to Games Workshop for a little bit, and then we're going to shift over to another company. Yes, there are other companies. There are other games. Let's see. So we've got one thing I want to talk about, Plasma. Holy smokes, is it good right now. Super good right now. Plasma's been up and down throughout the history of 40K. I started in 3rd, kind of quit in 4th, jumped over to Fantasy, quit both of them. Gosh. Not too long before Age of Sigmar got released, but oh god, that game is stupid. I love the minis. All the new minis are fantastic. Hate the rules. Hate any game that has Mortal Wound spam or whatever you want to call it. Like, it's just dumb. Don't like Mortal Wound spam in 40K. I don't mind it when it's Psychers because there's still that potential for them killing themselves, and there's the potential for it to fail. Do not like it if there's no negative drawback or it doesn't cost you anything. Just don't like it. If I have a unit and I spend X amount of points for it and it does like D3 mortal wounds because you're standing next to it, no, I don't like that. It's just a personal preference. Like, not a fan. Just have it apply hits as normal. Like, sorry. Give it rules like the old games had instead of just like, go screw yourself. You're just taking damage. Meh. But Plasma in a good spot right now. It's unmodified wound rolls of 1 or hit rolls of 1. So there's definitely ways to mitigate that. Whereas before it was any hit rolls of 1. So and your hit rolls being mitigated or limited to 1 net penalty or positive is awesome. And what that means is that, and I didn't word it super well, but what it means is if you have 5 modifiers being applied to your hit roll, what you do is you add them all up. So let's say you have 2 negatives and 3 positives. Actually, let's say you have 4 negatives and 1 positive. You add them all up. So -4 plus 1 is -3. And then you say, okay, so we have a -3. Well, it's capped at 1, so it just drops to -1. So you're just always just -1 or +1 to hit at most. You can't be penalized into not being able to hit somebody at all. So that's cool. It's a really good change. I think there's going to be some ways that certain armies probably finagle that mechanic a little bit. I could be wrong, but really, really good change. But it also, again, helps make Plasma really good because it's unmodified hit rolls of 1, and your hit rolls are capped at a -1 penalty anyway. And that really creates some pretty interesting dynamics that you didn't necessarily have in 8th edition. Tank commanders for Imperial Guardsmen, super good, or Astra Militarum, super good. You know, they hit on ballistic skill 3. They can give themselves the order to reroll 1s, at least until their new codex comes out. So you can plasma spam with that one Lehman Russ, and it is gross. You get, as long as you move 5 inches or less, you get 2d6 plasma shots, and then you can give it 2 plasma sponsons to give it 2d3 plasma shots. So you can get 2d6 plus 2d3. You're going to average 10 or 11 shots there, right in that range. But you're going to cap out at 18. And if you're shooting blast at a big unit, like you can really do some damage. For example, if you just use it on warriors, you can supercharge it to wound them on 2s. So you're hitting on 3s, re-rolling 1s, wounding on 2s. So you're mitigating the number of mortal wounds you do to yourself. And that neg 3 is going to negate an armor save for them. And the same goes for Space Marines. I mean, they'll get an armor save, they'll be a 6-up, but it's 2 damage, so you're killing anything. Like any troop choice, for the most part, you're killing, unless you're shooting those dumbass Gravis boys. But that's a whole different conversation. The sheer number of troop selections that Space Marines get is silly, but that's a different conversation for a different day. You know, so you can plasma spam with a Lehman Russ really effectively and have it just be disgusting. The downside is that if you get engaged, like if something charges that plasma tank, it's effectively shut down for a turn. It can't shoot its plasma in combat because it's blast. So you're going to want to give it that heavy stubber or something just so it can do a thing if it gets locked up. Or you're just going to want to fall back with it. And then whatever charged it, just blow it off the board, you know. But generally speaking, if your Lehman Russes are getting charged, you're probably not having a good time, or you didn't screen very well. But no, they're gross. Hellblasters, I think, are still core. Again, I'm not like a Space Marine player. I have a little bit of Marines, but I just dabble. They're still core, I think, so you can put them by a captain, supercharge them, mitigate the number of dudes that die, give them an apothecary to feel no pain. It's just a bunch of little things you can do to help mitigate the number of guys that get peeled off the board when you're supercharging that plasma. I one-shot a Doomsday Arc with that plasma Lehman Russ, and don't get me wrong, it was good rolls as much as it was just plasma being plasma. You know, and the guy was playing was like, oh, this new quantum shielding rule is dumb. I don't even like it. And I was like, you actually had a better chance to live through that with the new rule than you did with the old rule. You know, so it's powerful. It's super good. You get a high volume of high strength shots. Yeah, they're only doing 1 to 2 damage, but again, you get a high volume of them. There's still some units I wouldn't take plasma on. Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum Sentinels. You know, I wouldn't necessarily take plasma on them, or even if I did, I wouldn't supercharge it, just because they don't really have too many ways to re-roll hit rolls of 1, and a 1 just destroys it. Like, that is a 5 or 6 wound, I forget which, 5 or 6 wound vehicle that just dies on a hit roll of 1. So that's gross. Like that's nah. I'll just give that thing heavy stubbers, or not heavy stubbers, heavy bolters or autocannons or missiles or something else, las cannons, anything but that shit, man. That's dumb. I like the amount of shots it puts out. You know, getting 3d3 shots for a squad of 3 of them, but I don't like watching them get picked up because I rolled a 1. You know, and you can I guess technically you can use a command point to re-roll it, but the problem is that you're getting a D3 shots per sentinel. So if you roll 2 1s, that dude's just getting picked up. It doesn't matter. There's nothing you can do about that. I know if you're running some named characters, like they'll re-roll hit rolls of 1, like if you're Catachan, you run Sergeant Harker, for example, they'll re-roll hit rolls of 1. And even if you don't supercharge it, it's still strength 7, neg 3, 1 damage. So it's still effective. You're still wounding most things on 4s at the most. So it's still effective, and maybe it isn't pointless. I just wouldn't supercharge it that much. It's expensive, though. You know, So is it, I think it's the same points as a las cannon. So is it better to have 3d3 strength 7 neg 3 1 damage shots, or is it better to have 3 strength 9 neg 3 d6 damage shots? You know, statistically, I mean, and it's also going to depend on what you're shooting at. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but no, it's super good though. Unfortunately, not everybody has plasma. Some people have variants. Tau have a really weird variant. Like their plasma is kind of garbage. Like when they supercharge it, their plasma is effectively a D3 damage autocannon. Like that's dumb. For a race that's supposed to be technologically advanced and superior, they sure have shitty plasma, although their meltas are gross. So there's that. The fusion blasters. Orcs don't really have a comparable plasma. I think I mentioned this before. I think the closest thing that comes to mind is the custom Mega Blaster, the KMB, and that thing is its own brand of disgusting. And I think that's why orc guns are the way they are. Like, GW knows that orcs generally suck at shooting, so they're just like, yeah, we'll just make the guns ridiculously overpowered. They're only going to hit once or twice a game anyway, fuck it. And I mean, I can't complain. It's legit. But anyway, you know, so again, yeah, I think plasma, you're going to start seeing plasma spam a lot more again. Even for like non-Dark Angels armies, I think you're going to start seeing people bringing that a little bit more, bringing the heat, so to speak. TK lacks the heat. Sorry, TK is my alter ego, one of my many other personalities. But hey, we're going to talk about Mantic, and we're going to talk about some of their games. We're going to take a break from GW for a bit, and we're going to do something a little bit different. Crazy, I know, but we're going to talk about, first we're going to talk about Kings of War. Kings of War, interesting game. Really interesting game. Played it in first edition, was not a fan. The models are okay. You know, they've definitely gotten better. I wouldn't say they're amazing. They're okay. Some of them are better than others. Their orc models are I'm not a fan. They're kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Like, they're just kind of goofy looking, you know, for lack of a better word. The nice thing is that, you know, Kings of War is more about the representation of your army than it is your actual army. And what I mean by that is you just get like movement trays, and you put models on the tray, and you don't have to pick them up. They just stay on the board the whole time until they're all removed. We'll get into that in a minute. But it's one of those where you don't necessarily have to use Mantic Games models. You know, you can get a tray, and you can put your own minis on the tray as long as the tray is the right size. You don't even have to have the right number of models on the tray. You don't. Because the tray is more about the representation of the size of the unit and how much space it would take up. So in that way, it's really interesting conceptually. When I first played it, it felt like a cheap, watered-down version of Warhammer Fantasy. It didn't feel like its own game. It was like, hey, we used to work for Games Workshop, and we're just going to make a shittier version of one of the games we made for them. And that's what it was. So hit the mic. We dabbled in it a little bit, had some fun with it. Like, it was okay. Again, it wasn't amazing. It was okay. It is better now. I haven't gotten to play it, but I have read through the rule book a bit, and I have watched a couple of battle reports from the makers of the game. So it's not like just two dudes interpreting the rule book and going, we think this is how it's played. It's two dudes that wrote the rule book and said, this is definitely how it's played. It has definitely grown into its own game a lot more than it was. It's got some interesting concepts. One of the things, like I said, is that you don't pick up models. So when you suffer casualties, you don't really suffer casualties, you suffer damage. So your whole unit basically has like a hit point total, essentially. And I could be screwing this way up. This is my understanding of the rules. So they basically, your whole unit has like a hit point total, or a morale total would be a better way of putting it. And as they take damage, you have to make morale checks. And then you roll your morale check, and then you add the damage done, and then if it meets or beats your like certain values, then they die. So for example, and I'll just make up numbers because I don't have the rules right in front of me. Let's say you have 20 skeletons on the board. And those 20 skeletons have a shaken, I don't think that's the right term, but a shaken value of 18 and a route value of 24. Okay? They get charged by anything. Tree Man. And the Tree Man does 8 damage to him. So they have a damage value of 8. So then they roll their 2d6 leadership. They get a 10, and then they add 8 to it for an 18. 18, let's say, was their shaken value. I already forgot what I had said, so let's say it is. Then they're shaken, and then they follow the rules for shaken. Now, let's say they had routed. Then the whole unit just gets picked up. So it's a really interesting mechanic that keeps your units entirely on the board, and they degrade. So as they take damage, they like reduce the number of attacks that they put out to represent the loss of fighting spirit or loss of morale or even just the loss of models. But the game mechanics are set so in a way so that you don't have to pick up models, and I like that. I think it's a really interesting mechanic. I just wish their models weren't so dumb. And really the orcs are the ones that are dumb. I don't like the orcs. The ogres are pretty cool looking. They have Ratkin. I thought those were not fantasy, though. I thought those were the other game that they did. It might be. They might have crossed them over finally. The undead are undead. They look fine. Your ghouls, your ghasts, your cavalry, although a lot of them are resin and metal, and that's gross. I'm not a fan. The resin's not bad. I think some of them are plastic. I could be wrong, but I know some of them are metal, and that metal is just dumb. I hate metal models. So yeah, it's definitely become its own game, and I'm excited to see that. It's very strategic. You have to understand how to like position and flank and do all these other things. So it adds a lot of the elements that fantasy had that I enjoyed, like understanding that it's more advantageous to know your battlefield positioning and your battlefield role than it is to just bring the big dick unit and just stomp somebody. And that's one of the things I did not enjoy about 8th edition. And I know I said we're done with Games Workshop, but when they've essentially set the standard for a lot of wargaming, you almost have to draw comparisons to them. Not that they set the standard, but they're the biggest name in it. You have to draw comparisons to it. You don't necessarily have to say it's better or worse, but it gives people a point of reference. In 8th edition Warhammer, it was bring the big dick unit and just table people, and that was silly. I did not enjoy that. Whereas games like Kings of War and Bolt Action, you have to understand actual tactics and positioning a lot more, which I think is part of the reason why I'm more at home with those. I'm not saying I'm a genius tactically, but I do have a solid understanding of how to move on a battlefield as long as we're in roughly company-sized element, platoon-sized element. I've got a pretty good grasp on how that works. Anything above that, I never messed with. I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert on it. I'm not even an expert on company. I just have a firm grasp on it. So, so your positioning is really important in this game. You have to understand how you're facing, because you have to be facing specific ways to charge people. You have to be in specific facings to charge their flanks and their rears. I haven't gotten into how magic works yet, but I'm really excited. I think this and Arrow One, which I mentioned briefly, we're going to touch on that a little bit more once I get some games under my belt. But those are the two fantasy games I'm looking forward to playing the most. I have some undead dudes that I'm going to be using. Some of them are actually Mantic undead because their skeletons are super dope. They look really good, and I enjoy them a lot. And their zombies are really good too. You know, really a lot of their models are pretty cool as long as you just stay away from orcs. Their orcs are just dumb. Get better orcs, guys. Their goblins are pretty cool. I mean, they just look like goblins. Everybody's goblins effectively look the same, with the exception of Pathfinder, you know. So, but no, their goblins are pretty cool. Everything is generally good looking. And that's not all they do, man. They do some other stuff. They did a Mars Attacks game at one point. I don't think they still do that. I could be wrong. It was an interesting game. I wouldn't say it was good. I wouldn't say it was bad. It was definitely different. Their 40K-ish game I haven't played. What is it called? Not Dead Zone. I think Dead Zone's like their kill team. And maybe they don't support that one anymore either. Maybe they dropped it. Dead Zone. Yeah, no, Dead Zone is... Huh. Maybe Dead Zone is the one I'm thinking of. I'll have to look into that one. The description is that strike teams of elite fighters go head-to-head, so that makes me think it's more of like a kill team or a Necromunda style game. And maybe they just decided they didn't want to mess with the science fiction stuff in large scale because of the stranglehold GW has on it. Let's look. Oh, here, see all games. How about don't be a dummy? That would help. Oh, Warpath. There we go. That is what it is. Star Saga looks interesting. It looks like a Hero Quest or a Blackstone Fortress. Dreadball, I'm going to have to give that one another go. I haven't played it since it launched. I was not a fan of the first edition, but like I said before, a lot of those games just leave me feeling like, gosh, I wish this were Blood Bowl. So, no, they do a lot of interesting stuff, though, guys. They really do. And if you have played any of their games, let me know, because I am curious to know if they are good. Like I said, I like the direction that Kings of War seems to have gone. So I am curious to get back into it and see how it plays. I'm definitely excited about that. So this Thursday or Friday, I'm not sure which yet, but one of those 2 days when I do the next episode, we're going to go ahead and take a look at Warpath and Dead Zone. I'll spend the next couple of days learning them. Hopefully I'll get cleared. I am, like I said, through my symptoms. According to the CDC, I'm safe to be around right now, but I want to get that second test. So I'm hoping I can at least get one test game in, and see how both of those games play. And we'll cover those on Friday, Warpath and Dead Zone. And then we're going to take a little bit more in-depth look at the Smash Up starter set box. We're just going to cover the things that are in it and a little bit more details on how the game plays out and things along those lines. And hopefully we'll have a whole episode where we don't cover Games Workshop, but we will see what Games Workshop has to say about that with their news releases. So I will talk to you guys later this week.